Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing great. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my basement. Hope everybody's doing great. We're back again talking about the Saturn 4 Ultra. I know. I've been talking about the Saturn 4 Ultra for every single video since, I got it. But I mean, it's a new printer, it's a new machine, a lot of things that are coming out that people have questions about, a lot of things that I've seen on things like Reddit and the Facebook group on how do you calibrate on that thing properly, and how do you know how to do the exposure thing and everything like that. So that's what I want to cover in today's video, is just going on the Saturn 4 Ultra, talking about the things that we're going to do on the actual slicer, so inside of Chi2Box Pro, and then what you need to do here on the Saturn 4 Ultra. And in today's test, we're mainly going to be focusing on the Tabletop Foundry's cones of calibration, the new version 3, which I'm not 100% sure if it's out on their website, but it is available through their Discord. If you're a member of that, you can probably get it through there. I know they recently updated it, and I downloaded the most recent one, and that's what we'll be using here. I'll show you everything from my PC to here to post-processing, everything that I do with those test prints once they're out of the machine. Quick disclaimer though, the resins that I'm going to use are already calibrated for my machine, so I already have an idea of around where they need to print at. So I will try to stay around those times for exposure on my machine. If you have any questions whatsoever on anything like that, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I will get to it if I can. If I can't, then I can definitely point you guys in the right direction of where to go if you have some other questions that I might not be able to answer. Again, complete noob when it comes to resin 3D printing, so there's probably out there a ton of resources that are probably a lot better than I am, but thanks for watching, guys, and let's go ahead and get into the video. Alright guys, so first things first, as always with resin prints, you want to make sure you have your safety stuff. This currently doesn't have any resin in it, so I'm going to fill it up. But you definitely want to be wearing your respirator, some goggles, and some gloves. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that on real quick, and then we'll be right back. Alright everybody, while I'm getting that on, let's go ahead and just talk about the process here on the slicer. So the first thing that you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to download a model from Colts 3D, which is this guy right here. You're going to want to go ahead and get that. It'll actually be a model that shows you where to place your test print models, and it'll do the 4, the 6, the 8, and this is aligned with what's going on the actual machine. So I already have this downloaded, but for you, go ahead and just click that download button, and here it is, the 4, the 6, the 8, and yeah, you can move the model around, but it'll effectively show you where exactly the models need to be on the build plate so that you don't accidentally place it too far across that line and then it doesn't come out right. So let's go ahead and get that loaded in here. You're going to want to just go ahead and drag and drop whichever version you want in, whether that's the 4, the 6, or the 8. For this, we're just going to do the 6. So it shows you here. It does have writing and it tries to tell you exactly where things are, but I just go ahead and drop in the cones of calibration V3 here, and let's go ahead and put that there. And then what I do is I just like to copy and in the rest of the models. But yeah, you just want to align them inside of those little boxes and your calibration should work. So let's see here. That's not where it is. That's going to be in prepare, and it is where did it go? Right here. I always lose it. You can't really see it because it's off the screen, but I'm going to increase it up to 5 times because I already have 1 and we're doing 6. So just put them in there wherever you like. That doesn't have to be perfect as long as they're within the boxes. And now this will actually match up with the way that your printer is going to go ahead and expose everything in the calibration screen. So I go ahead and get rid of this just because you don't really need to print that. And there are the models. So now you can go ahead and slice that up, send it over to your printer, and you should be all set. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, guys, got my gloves on. We're going to not put the respirator on just yet, just so you guys can hear me talk and understand what I'm saying. We're going to fill this bad boy up with some resin, And once we do that, we are going to get nice and close and personal with the settings. If, like you've seen in just a second ago, I was talking about how to set everything up in Chitubox and where to go to get the separators that I found on Colts 3D. And I will have a link to all that stuff down below as well. And then I will have a link down below to the Tabletop Foundry. And then from there, you guys can join the Discord server to get that new cones of calibration that they've come out with. I don't know if it's already live on their website. It might be. I might have just missed it. But if it's not, you can just join the Discord and then get the file from there. Let's go ahead and fill this guy up with some resin. Cubic ABS-like resin Pro 2. Not sponsored. It feels like a commercial now with the nice music in the background. But it's not sponsored. It's this is what we're going to be using. I've been using it for my Etsy stuff, so let's go ahead and get that nice and poured in here. Just go ahead, do it. Come on. Come on. Ooh. So nice. And Cubic. Not sponsoring today's video at all. Just like this resin. Cubic resin. ABS-like Pro 2. Ooh. Alright guys, so apparently I'm not going to show you the setup process, but here's what the lights look like underneath your machine as you are going through the calibration process. As you can see, this is 6. And this is what's essentially happening underneath the resin. Please don't stare at this. This will damage your eyeballs. But this is essentially what happens as the lights slowly turn off. This is an over-exaggerated version of it. But essentially this is what happens. It happens much faster with your own stuff. So here I'm going to point out the process. So which one turns off first, which one turns off last. Obviously here first, the bottom right-hand corner is the one that's going to turn off first. And then the top left-hand corner is the one that's going to turn off last. This is just an example of what's going to happen so that you have an idea of which ones are which. And here I am pointing at them. Let's go. Alright guys, so now that you've seen how this calibration actually works on your printer, we can go ahead and start printing the calibrations, which is what it's doing right now. Like I said earlier, I already know exactly what the exposure time that I need for my print. For this resin, which is the Anycubic ABS-like resin. I'm just using that because that's the one I have. I had actually ordered some resin specifically for this so we can all go together and try to figure out what the actual exposure was. But it has been delayed, so therefore I will not be getting that for a little bit. So I decided to just go ahead without it for now, and then we can probably maybe do that together at some other point. But it's going to go ahead and print right now. I'm going to go do some stuff and then come back once this is done, and then we'll talk about the process that I use for removing them and remembering what they are. It's just a relatively longer process than printing them one out at a time. Granted, if you print it out one at a time, you'd have to do each print for about 30-ish minutes, excuse me, and then check it and then print lower or higher depending on what you find, and then just go from there. So this way I feel like is a little bit more efficient because you can put a underexposed number all the way at the bottom and a superly high overly exposed number up at the top, and then try to find a common middle ground. I like to first start off with 8 and then move down to 6 and then eventually just do 4 just to see, you know, the last couple ones that were relatively close, if those are still relatively close, or if maybe less things on the build plate affected in any way. And I found that it doesn't. The number that I usually find after number 6 is usually the number that I end up sticking with. But yeah, so at first I start off with trying to do, you know, you can hear it now, it's peeling off of the... I start off with Oh my god, lost my train of thought. The lowest number that I can think of that will still print on this guy, which generally is like, you know, like below 2, like 1.5, and then I move up from there. So I start off with like 1.5, and then I go up to 2, then 2.5, and then 3, and then generally, if it's the 8, I try to do some in between numbers just so I can get a good idea. Once I get a good one out of that range, I then take that range and try to place it somewhere middle-ish. It's even numbers, so it's a little hard to find an even middle spot. So what I do is I end up putting it towards, you know, towards the bottom-ish, and then running, so instead of it being like a, let's say 2.9, 2.8, I do 2.95, and then go from that up and then from that down to try to get a good idea if the good number was 2.9. And then that's just the process that I follow. But with this one, once it's done printing, we'll be back. We'll be looking at it, and I'll show you what I do to get them off of the build plate and try to remember the way that they actually are supposed to be labeled, because it gets a little confusing, especially with the way that you take the build plate off and then set it down to try to chisel everything out, and it can get a little bit confusing. But I'll show you my process, and hopefully that helps you with your process, or you can make improvements on my process, or just not use my process altogether. Totally up to you, but it's just here. Hopefully it helps, and if it doesn't, then I'm sorry, but we'll be right back. All right, guys, so the test print is finished, so let's go ahead and get those from here over to here, and then I will show you guys the process. The process. All right, guys, so I'm going to try to remember exactly what it is that I said during this. Unfortunately, the audio got a little wonky because of me being behind the camera. So in this part, I'm essentially explaining the front of the machine versus the back. So the front is obviously the one with that little divot there where it latches on, the latch grabs onto, and your beginning print, so the lowest number is that one right there, the front right one, and then the back left one that I'm pointing at is the longest. So shortest, the next one that follows, the one that follows, and then it actually jumps to the one right behind the shortest time, and then moves down to the left back. That is the longest one. This is the shortest one. Again, I don't exactly remember what I said, but that's the shortest one. That's the one you have to remember, right? The shortest one. So what I do here is I take the shortest one out first, if it printed, and I wash it by hand with some alcohol. So I quickly swoosh it around in some dirty alcohol. Then I take it out, throw it in some clean alcohol, and then from there I actually label it, whatever that number what might be, and then move on to the next one. So that's super important to remember the order of which they print in. Here I'm moving the camera a little bit, so sorry. It's going to be super shaky because I do actually take this off of the tripod and just hold it in my hand. Let's give me here a few seconds if I would hurry the heck up. Oh my goodness, look at all that shaky shakes. I might edit this out. I might not. I might just leave it in because, you know, this is the process. So here I'm just going to show you the numbers, right? So it's kind of, it's a little hard to, yeah, take it. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, going for it right here. So this shows you, right? This is the front of the build plate. It does a terrible job of showing that that's actually the front, but it's the front if you're looking straight down from the top of the printer. This is where the pieces are. It's not if you flip the build plate up towards you, then that doesn't really make any more sense because, yeah. So, again, if you're looking directly from the top down into the printer, this is what it's showing you. So those first three are the front, right? So the top of the build plate, if it's pointing towards you, if the front of the build plate is facing up, that's the top row. And then comes the bottom row or the back row. The back left being the longest exposed, and the front right is the shortest amount exposed. And it's just a little tricky because of how you have the build plate after you take it off, right? This is showing you if the build plate is attached to the printer, how it's actually going to come out. So that bottom row there, the shortest amount of times are the front of the machine, and then the back ones are in the back. So again, here I'm just showing you again that the front is, what's the front? You can barely see there. It's where the the little clasp clamps down onto the build plate. That's the front, so those are the lowest numbers. That's the lowest one there. The next one, the one that follows, then the one behind the lowest, and then so on and so forth until you get to the back left. All right, guys. So that's essentially the process for calibration on the Saturn IV Ultra. I know the directions, at least from the booklet that I read, weren't super clear. I ended up watching a ton of other YouTube videos to figure out this process. So my process is essentially, I take the pieces off, whether I want to start high or low, that totally depends on you, and take off one piece at a time. Swash around in some semi-dirty alcohol, and then give it a good rinse with some clean alcohol just to get the initial large amount of gunk of resin off of the print, and then wash it in clean alcohol. That way your alcohol lasts you a lot longer. And then once that's done washing, you want to kind of wipe down the bottom, take a Sharpie or something and write down the number of the exposure time. So for example, the lowest one for me was a 2.93. So I would write that on the bottom of it, and then I'd set it to the side and let it finish completely drying, air drying, and then move on to the next piece. And down the line I go until I get to the end, and then I can compare which piece is the best. So 2.95 was the best, so that's this guy right here. It's backwards, but you get the gist. And so with this guy, there's obviously some things that you have to follow. There's a whole document included in the part where you download this, and it talks about all the pieces and all the things that you want to look out for. You want to make sure that all the cones, let's see if this will, come on. All the cones in the front, I don't know if that was picking that up very well, but all the cones in the front are solid, and then the cones in the back have failed. Oh my goodness. Don't focus on me. Get out of the picture. No? Well, anyways, it's not really focusing, but yeah, so you want to make sure that the success cones are all successful and all of the failure cones have failed, or at least the majority of them have, particularly when it comes to this test. So then you have your a little mug and a little insert for the mug here. So you want to make sure that comes off. Pop that guy right in there. And make sure that it's pressure fitted enough that it doesn't fall out. It's all the way in now. It doesn't fall out. It's in there. Can't really see it. But the little mug is all set. Good test. So now comes the little sword, which is on the inside here. Take that guy out. Nice and easy. Oh, there we go. Okay, little sword here, and then that needs to go into the skull that's at the bottom, and then inside of this hole, but not inside of the other one, and to consider it a 100% success. So goes into the skull perfectly fine, as you can see, and then goes into that one, but it's a little tight, so it won't go into the other hole. So that's essentially that test, and that's what I do to calibrate my machines, just to make sure that they're as accurate as possible before I start printing anything else on them. Your way might be different. If you have a different way, I'd love to hear it down below. I'm sure other people would like to see what you do differently, and that way we can all help each other figure these printers out. Again, this is coming from somebody this is my first resin printer ever. I can't say that I sit here and say that I've done this on a large amount of printers, because I haven't. FDM printers wise, yes, I have done a lot of calibration over the years, but resin, this is my first official printer. So if you have any feedback, any comments, any tips and tricks on this guy that you have done, that you have used, or on any other printer that you could possibly help somebody else out, leave that down below. And if you like the video, guys, please like, subscribe, do all the things, follow me everywhere. All social media will be down below. And if you're interested in the settings that I use in this video for my resin printer, those will all be on my Patreon. And I will also have super awesome perks for everybody. Well, awesome perks for everybody who signs up. Your names will be in the video, and I want to say I believe I have one member at the moment. He's just a regular member. I want to say thank you to that person. If you watch my content, I appreciate it. But if you're interested in those settings and other settings like my FDM printer settings, those are all also on Patreon. I will also be giving away models that I've designed that are just for regular useful things or nothing super exciting. That will be on there as well. So again, guys, if you like the video, please do hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know what you think of the shirt. And if you're interested in maybe me selling these to you guys, I don't know. But anyways, guys, this was a blast. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye, everybody.
And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel